Hey everyone, this is Ashton with Red Modeling Paint Studio. Getting right into it with the part 2 of painting Dark Legion infantry. What we're going to be working on tonight with this model is we're going to finish the wood and leather pieces here. We're going to trim out the metal pieces. We're going to paint the hair. I'm going to paint these feathers on the back and then finish up the sword and then do the base. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the hair. Oh, and the purple too. Actually, I'm going to start with the purple tonight. So the two colors that we based with the purple were Warlord Purple and Hex Lichen from Vallejo Game Color. And then it was washed with the Secret Weapon Miniatures Wash Amethyst. Now what I'm going to do is mix up a little bit of a highlight color that we will use to do some edge highlighting on the purple. To do that, we're going to take some Warlord Purple and we're going to take some Frostbite Blue from P3. Sorry about that. And mix up a little bit of a highlight color. And since we're in the interest of wanting to paint it quickly for tabletop quality, that's what we're doing here. We're not going to be doing any kind of blending or anything with this. Just going to be, straight up edge highlighting. And you're probably going to do about a 1-to-1 mix of the Warlord Purple and the Frostbite. It's going to give you a fairly pink color, and then what we're going to do is we're going to apply this color to the edges on the armor. You're going to need a really fine tip brush for this, and just focus on keeping a steady hand and keeping the edges that are most prominent, make those be the ones that you highlight, and you can see how that looks on the armor. Okay. Adjust my light here for a second. And that's probably pretty good. I don't think we need to do much more than that for your infantry models. Of course, on your beast models, you'll be working that purple quite a bit more, and I went over that, of course, in part 1 when I was working on the rake. But for the infantry models, you can keep it fairly simple. Now, for the hair, we're going to start with a darker gray, not quite as dark as Greatcoat Gray, but we'll mix a little bit of Frostbite into that, and that'll give us a nice base color on which we'll base the hair on. So you're probably going maybe 3-to-1, Great Coat Gray, Frostbite. See what we got there. Okay, I'm going to let that dry for a minute. And move on to some metallic colors. We want to keep things dark still, so we'll start with P3 pig iron. This hilt here will probably do that in gold, I think, just to give a little variety, or a copper maybe. And then on her composite bow here, I'm going to do these ends here, I think in silver. Oh, looking at the model too, we need to do the eyes. I'm just realizing that as well. I think that's where I stopped last night, was working on those eyes. There we go. Alright, the hair is almost ready. Let me just touch up a couple spots here real quick on the hair, and then we'll let that dry again just a little bit more. And we can get into finishing that part up. Let's get it all covered though here. I missed some of it there. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to take some P3 Signar Blue Highlight, and we're going to take some P3 Coal Black. We'll mix this together, about 2 parts Signar Blue Highlight to 1 part Coal Black, and this is what we're going to use to base the feathers on the back with. We want a blue. I'm going for a blue that's a slightly lighter color, a little more desaturated than the color of the cloak. And this blue we're going to make look a little more like the chitin on the rake here, okay? See our color there? Okay, we'll let this dry now. move on to applying a few washes here. On the brown leather parts, we'll use again Army Painter Strong Tone. And go ahead and wash it on the metals too. It'll give the metals a nice dark, a little more of a gritty kind of look. Notice though that I'm pulling the wash down away from the end here where I'm ultimately going to apply a highlight. So again, same thing over here. I'm going to pull the wash down and let it pool mostly around the base here where those shadows will be applied a little later on, or where those highlights, opposite of where those highlights will be applied. And so I stay consistent. I'm going to do the same thing on the sword here. Again, pulling it down. Okay. We're going to take some straight coal black now, make a little bit of a wash out of it, and we're going to use that wash, that coal black, to do two things. Put a little bit of a wash onto the feathers and add a little bit of shadow into the hair. The thing, what this does when you start working with the same colors in different ways and different consistencies, you start to create harmony in the overall scheme. I mean, I could just get a black, wash, like a Army Painter dark tone or something like that, and wash these with that. But it ends up making the model or the final paint scheme look muddy. And by doing it with a color that you're already using in the scheme, you end up adding harmony to the paint scheme instead of making it look muddy. So that's kind of the reasoning and logic for doing it this way. And you can see it's fairly thin, and I'm trying to focus the wash into the creases and the crevices all around the hair. And I'll be applying some highlight colors here, which will help recapture it. But really, it's just to add a little bit of shadow. And put a little bit around the hands too. Just same on the feet, just to give them a little bit of a shadow there. Okay, we'll let those dry for a minute while I'm thinking about it. Paint these toenails here. Just using straight coal black for that. I'm going to paint the feathers here on the quiver in Frostbite. It'll break up all the blue on the top there. Breaks up the blue, but again remains harmonious, or in harmony with the other colors there, because it's colors that I've already used and mixed in various ways. I'm going to pull this off camera for a second and just run my blow dryer over it, speed the drying up a little bit. Okay, we're dry enough now that we can move on. And what we're going to do is move on with the feathers. Take the original color that you based the feathers in, which was a mixture of Signar Blue Highlight and Coal Black, and add a little Frostbite to that. You want to lighten that mixture up, you know, maybe 1 or 2 steps. Let's see the blue we're getting there. And you're going to then take this color and just kind of hit the edges of these feathers, you know, all the way around. Don't worry about, you know, being super precise or clean. We're just adding kind of generalized highlights at this point. You know, the pinpoint highlights, you know, that'll actually kind of identify the individual strands in the feather. You know, that'll come in just a second. You know, we're just adding kind of just general highlights right now with the blue. Okay, let's see how that looks. Now you take it up another step, add a little more Frostbite, and this will probably be, you're going to want to tighten this one up a little bit more, okay? Keep this highlight more like the thin lines that you would see, you know, on a feather. Okay. And really you're almost just kind of doing little dots or little stripes on the feathers. Keeping it really, really close to the edge, just like you were doing on the rake. You know, focusing right close to the edge. Okay, and there's your feathers. Highlight number 2. And then the final highlight now, just go straight with the frostbite. And again, keep it as tiny as you can, just little tiny dots right on the edge. This is your extreme highlight here, okay? And this is really important that it stays just right on that edge of those feathers to sell the effect. Leave a little more space between these, okay? Allow some of those layers underneath to show through in between. Okay, and there's your feathers. When we put her right next to the rake, you can definitely see what we got there. The camera focus matches, and that's what we want. Okay. Hair now. We've got our Great Coat Gray. Mix that with a little bit of frostbite. Try and get a color that's, you know, a little brighter, a little lighter than what you had before for your original base coat. Okay, and all you're going to do here is just kind of drag the side of your brush across the top of some of the strands of hair, almost like a dry brushing, but not so dry. See what we got there, and then take it up even brighter now, adding more frostbite, and try to keep these lines thinner and shorter, just adding kind of the highlights, or the extreme highlights, if you will. There we go. And we'll take a little bit of the Signar Blue mixture that we had, make ourselves a little bit of a wash with it. We'll wash these feathers in the quiver. To give some depth to them. Okay. And gosh, that's about it. Let's get this eye finished. Let's get that hilt on the sword finished. Now for that hilt, you know, I'm thinking kind of a bronzy, coppery color. Okay. You don't necessarily need to go out and buy this color, because I think there's going to be very little of this used in the army, in your army. But you know, brassy brass is a nice coppery color, and it covers very well, and is going to go really well with this, I think. But again, because you're going to be using so little of it, I don't know if you necessarily need to go out and buy a whole tube of it. You know, you could probably use P3, you know, solid gold, roulette gold, I mean. Molten bronze, you know, one of those two, and it would probably work just fine. I don't particularly like the coverage of the P3 golds and coppers. I think they're a little watery, so that's why I use the Vallejo ones. But those would be the kind of the colors that you would go with there. I mean, even the Vallejo is a little rough as far as you know, how well it coats. Best I've seen is the Scale 75. I absolutely love those, but right now you can't get them one bottle at a time. You have to buy the whole set. So there is talk, though, from on their website, their Facebook page, that they'll be making individual bottles available in the near future. So that'll be nice. Okay. Now, if you want to add a darker dimension to your silver colors here, a little bit of a wash of some coal black, kind of pulled down into the base there, like so. It's a little thick. Let me wipe some of that off. So kind of a glaze of that. That'll help darken things up just a little bit. Keep things, you know, somewhat harmonious in the color schemes, as far as, you know, again, tying all that blue color together. This is how dry it is here in Idaho. I can already put a second coat of that on, not even 20 seconds later. Okay. And then what you can do is take some P3 Quicksilver and then just kind of blend that onto some of the edges. Give yourself a quick highlight. Specifically, what you can do is you can see the edge of the sword there. You can take this and run it on that sharpened edge and create a nice, you know, sharp look to the sword, I guess. I'm not sure what word it is I'm thinking of using there, but it just creates a nice contrast on the blade. And as far as the tips of the bow go here, you just kind of blend that on. You can then lick your brush and kind of soften the edge a little bit. And there you go. I will use Frostbite. I like to use, especially for like Scorn and Legion, I actually don't paint the pupils. I just kind of paint a white on white eye. I think it makes them look a little more creepy. So what we'll use is just straight Frostbite here. Dot there, and there you go. It's pretty good, pretty dark. Let's knock the base out real quick. Remember, the base color for the base is Ashton gray, and then we wet blend some colors on top of that. So it's important that you have everything ready to go, which is going to be Ashton Gray, Coal Black, Troll Blood Highlight, and Umbral Umber. Those are kind of your basing colors, okay? Now that's Battlefield Brown. Let me get Umbral Umber. Sorry about that. And there we go. And again, remember you're wet blending this quickly. Put the Ashton Gray down, and then quickly get some Umbral Umber. Add your shadows in, wet blending that in right on top of the Ashton Gray. Then a little Coal Black to darken it up a little further, and then the Troll Blood Highlight to give you some highlighting on the edges. Okay, so let me get my paints ready to go here. Just a drop or two of each on your wet palettes, all you need, because you're going to be moving pretty quick. This base will probably take me over about 5 minutes to do. It'll go pretty fast. This right here, these 4 colors, this is a nice little quartet of colors here. You can get some good use out of those colors. Don't worry about necessarily overloading or underloading your brush here, okay? And because you're applying it so wet and so thick, thick's not the right word, wet's the right word, because you're applying it so wet, you really shouldn't have to worry much about brush strokes either, okay? And you can see I'm kind of using one of my cheaper brushes here because this technique will tear through your nice brushes a little faster. And I like to save those for detail work and blending work. And so I'll use these cheap Walmart synthetics to just knock this out with. Especially on a base like this that's really got a lot of rough textures, rough surface. Another thing you got to watch out for is making sure you don't get any paint on the already completed model. All right, and you can see how wet that is, how much paint is loaded up on there. I've yet to try this technique on a miniature. Maybe one day I'll be brave enough to try it. Okay. Now you take your Umbral Umber, okay, and just start working that in right on top of the surface there. Wipe your brush off on a towel or something, before you do the blending. Otherwise, it'll look a little too muddy. You need to add a little more color. Add a little more color. Just kind of move it around, and it's a great way to add a marbled texture too to your surface. So I'm just moving really quickly here. Every time you see my brush go off camera here, I'm either dipping it in the paint, the Umbral Umber paint, or I'm wiping it off on a towel that's sitting on my lap. because it makes the blending of the edge a little easier to do when the brush isn't quite so loaded up. Adding paint, wiping off, and blending. Wiping off, now adding paint, wiping off, and blending. Adding paint, wiping off, and blending. Adding paint, wiping off, and blending. I haven't rinsed my brush at all right now. Now I'm switching to the coal black, adding paint, and blending. Wiping off, adding paint, wiping off, and blending. Dropping my brush. Okay. Wiping off, adding paint, fine paint, wiping off, and blending. Wiping off, adding paint, wiping off, and then blending. You guys get the idea. It's worth picking up something that you can practice on, you know, an old Army man, some old Space Marines that you have lying around. Pick up some of these bases from Secret Weapon Miniature, you know, just, you know, something to practice on, and you can kind of get the idea of how the process works and how it goes. But you know, this is a wet blending technique, so you've got to move fast. And on a surface like this, you know, a rock surface like this, how are you going to go wrong? You know, I mean, who says there's any hard, fast rules on how what color a rock needs to be? You know. Okay. And then I did rinse the brush prior to switching to the highlight color. And then this color, you know, you're just going to run it right on the edge, wipe, and blend. And at this point, the paint may have dried enough that you need to start, you know, adding a little moisture back to the brush, you know, in the form of, you know, some water from your wet palette, or some saliva, or, you know, whatever it is. Someone is mentioning in chat that there's a little bit of background noise from the music. I do have a fan running. Is that what you're hearing, or is it static, or some other kind of interference or noise? Okay. I'm going to run my hair dryer for a second. I want to dry this base up so you guys can see what it'll look like dry. Almost dry enough, guys. Just a few more seconds, sorry. Okay. Now, the last thing you want to do is get yourself what you use, the brush you use for dry brushing. Okay, and dip it into your highlight, which is the Troll Blood highlight. Wipe it off on your towel, and then you're just going to lightly just pick up some of these edges again. Trick to making dry brushing look good is to keep it very light, your touch against the surface of the model. Okay, if it's too hard, that's when the dry brushing starts looking like it's been really heavily textured. You know, the paint's been really heavily textured, and you're trying to avoid that right now. Okay, you just want to real lightly pick up those edges. Okay, and the last thing we do here is we take some Vallejo model color, flat black, and we paint the rim of this base. And this is the part for me when I'm painting a model when everything just comes together, because you know these base edges can get really rough looking with your fingers rubbing up against them, or overspray or overpaint from different colors. And when you just put this black edge on a base and it dries, I don't know, it just, that's the point where the model for me really comes alive, because that's the finish point, you know, that's the finish line, that's the running across the tape, you're running through the tape ribbon event type thing. So there you go. And there you have it. One Legion infantry model and a corresponding Legion monster, light war beast, and how they work together in creating a cohesive paint scheme. How it's going to look on your beasts, how it's going to look on your infantry. These turned out pretty good. So that's it for tonight, guys. Thanks for watching. I'm going to have some pictures of these models up on my Facebook page here in the next day or two. This video should also be up on Facebook in the next day or two, or excuse me, on YouTube in the next day or two as well. Appreciate your participation and your support. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at redmodeling@gmail.com, or you can hit me up on Facebook at facebook.com/redmodelingpaint. You guys have a great night, and thanks again for watching. Take care.